All right. Hello, everyone. Um, Before we start, how many people here are designers, like UI designers? One. Just one? Oh, two? Okay. All right. This talk is not for you guys. um, so basically, um, this talk is for, let's say you're a Python developer and you just realize your UIs always look shitty, you know, this talk is for you. So it's designed for UI design, but for developers, right? Because most developers can't make UI look pretty, apparently. So, so because of that, we are not going to talk anything about golden ratios or color theory or typeface hierarchy or grid systems or any of the fancy stuff designers like to talk about. We're not going to talk about any of that. So let's get started. Um, I guess who am I? My name is Mohammed, and originally I'm born in Gambia, and then from there I moved to the U.S. for a while, and was in the U.S. for about 15 years, and then I moved to Edmonton just last year. I run a small software company. Um, we mostly build software for manufacturing companies. I also did my bachelor's in computer science, did a master's in statistics, and I'm currently doing a PhD in statistics. Final dissertation is next week, actually, so I'm pretty stressed right now. Um, and that's my LinkedIn and email, just in case. So that's that about me. Um, First item we're going to talk about is alignment. This is a pretty easy one, pretty easy to fix, and I'll show you. Um, so if you look at the one on the left and the one on the right, which one looks better? Right one, right? Yeah. So this is a very common mistake I see when developers are building UIs. They just don't align things, and it makes things look bad. So, you know, just make things line up. Right? In this case, you can see it's pretty simple. Just one, just add that, and you're done. All right. One rule of thumb I do like to use is try and make one item, every item aligned to at least one other item. So if you look at the top one here, you got a bunch of stuff that's in random places. Whereas in the bottom one, we try to like, maybe I should use my mouse instead of my hand. We try to like align some stuff here, align these, just to make it look good, right? So that's alignment. Hopefully that's clear. Um, Next one here. Yeah, these are all going to be very simple. Like I said, this is aimed for developers, right? Not for designers. And I'm not a designer either. So um, there's, I like to say there's like two main types of white space to kind of think about. The first one is white space between elements. So if you look at this one here, you can see there's no like spacing between the icons and the description here and the label. I see that a lot too when developers build UIs. So just adding a little bit of spacing between elements just make things look better. So that's a simple one too. Another white space one is white space around elements, right? So if you have some sort of container and then you have things inside that container, you want to leave a little bit of white space just around the elements, to put some padding in there. Fonts. This is another one that I see trips up people a lot. I think the main thing I see is people just go for fancy fonts, when they're just starting out, and that causes a lot of problems. So if you don't know what you're doing with fonts, just stick to the simple ones. That's the rule of thumb there. So then just go put some Comic Sans, you know, just stick to something simple. I don't know, Helvetica, it's, people say it's boring, but it works, right? The other one is color. That is another one too that trips people up, developers up. And I think the biggest thing I see is people just use too many colors in the beginning, right? So I would say my rule of thumb is just start with just one color, right? So when you're building a UI, just have your, your blacks and grays or whatever, and then just have one other color in there, and just start with that. And then later on, if you feel you need to add more colors for whatever reason, you can do that. If you really want to add more colors, then there are a lot of online resources where you can get color palettes that work well together, right? So yeah, I'll maybe show you some of those resources in a bit here. Another one is balance. This one's a little bit more subjective. Um, here's an example of what I would call an unbalanced page. And because like there's a lot of stuff on the left side and like barely anything on the right side of the page, right? Whereas if you look at contrast it to maybe this other page where it's a little bit more balanced, right? And ignore this green box here. I realized there was some sensitive info there that I had to hide last minute, and I didn't want to go create a new one. So yeah, so keeping the page balanced. So just making sure that definitely looks much better than that, right? So balance is a good one. Then finally, the most important one of all, it's just steel. I don't know. Do you guys know where the quote is from? Anybody? There you go. You got it. Yeah. I'm attributing it to myself now. So here's some resources to steal from, right? So let's say you're doing let's say you're designing a dashboard or something. Why is this thing jumping around my screen over here? Stop it. Let's say you're designing some sort of dashboard or something, right? There's a lot of resources. One of them is Dribble, right? I'm gonna click this, see if that works. Right, so you can go into Dribble and just say dashboards, right? And then you'll see a ton of different dashboards other people have done, right? And then you can look at one and be like, okay, I like that idea. I'm gonna like incorporate it into my work, right? So Dribble is one, or you can just do a plain Google search, right? That works too. You can go into Google image search. If you're building any kind of UI, just search for it and see what other people have done. Like, why reinvent the wheel when there's already established patterns out there? The other good thing about also making your UI not be like a snowflake is it just makes it easier for the users because users are already very familiar with a certain way UIs are laid out. If you just come up with something totally different, your user experience is gonna suffer a bit unless you really know what you're doing. Right? And this one's a new one, I guess. Apparently the AIs are good enough now to generate UIs. And this afternoon I actually tried one. So I just went into ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, make a dashboard for me, and it did it. So you can use AI too nowadays, and at least use it as a starting point for inspiration, I guess. That's it. Whoop. Questions? Yeah.
In the balance unbalanced page section.
Yes.
I believe the balance page looked a bit more crowded, maybe more overwhelming.
Yes.
Instead of making both sides of the screen more information dense, you can make it into one column and center it so it doesn't look unbalanced but also not overwhelming.
Yep, that's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. There's many ways to make a page feel balanced, right? Yeah, yeah. Like you said, you can put it in the middle. Yeah, make it stretch out over the page. Yeah, you definitely don't want to sacrifice white space for balance, right? You don't want to like crowd the page just to get some balance. Right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Lots of times when I'm designing something, especially it's not as a designer, I feel like I'm always like tweaking small things or I'm not quite happy, and I spend actually a lot of time on.
Mm-hmm.
How do you like make a call when you're like, okay, it's good enough, or what do you approach first to make it look at least good?
Yeah.
To like maximize your time.
I have the same problem. So I don't know if I have. I end up spending way too much on things. Um, yeah. I guess what I try to ask myself is like, okay, what am I trying to achieve? Why am I trying to? What do I think I'm gonna achieve by um, making this thing like by designing this thing any further, right? If I feel like okay, that's why I have these like rule of thumbs. I just kind of look at it. I'm like, okay, does it satisfy all these things? And if it does, then I'm like, it's good enough. Yeah. Anybody else?
Okay, thanks so much, Mohammed.
All right. Thank you.